The next AutoBridge building block is the Automation Builder, which enables both internal and external workflows to be configured to exact operational needs. Let's set up some workflow automations for handling new entrance permit submissions. First, we'll click Add Automation, and we'll give our automation a name and description. Okay, the goal of this first automation is to capture when a new permit is submitted and assign the first review task. So I've captured that in the description so that we can keep track of why we're creating this automation later on. Okay, now that we have created this automation, we first need to select our trigger. In this case, we want this workflow to trigger when a record is created. So I'll give this trigger a name for clarity, and then I'm going to select the entity. So once again, we're dealing with the entrance permit application. Once I've saved my trigger, I can then select and configure my first action. Within the same record that was just created, I want to update some data within that record. First, I'll name this action. I'll select the entity once again and apply the record ID from the trigger. And then I'll choose the fields that I want to update. For this workflow, I'll just add the assignee to indicate that this task is being assigned. I can also update another field in the record. I'd like to update the overall application status. So this field was created to keep track of multiple different task statuses and the overall workflow that the permit needs to go through to be approved and issued. While the reviewer status field will capture just that task status. Because this permit was just created, the review is currently in process. Okay, now we should save our workflow and return to the main screen. Next, let's add another automation, this time to handle the task status update. Okay, so I've named this automation Review Task Status Canceled. So in this example, I'm going to cover the scenario in which the reviewer updates that task status to canceled. When that task status is updated to canceled, then we will add a task comment and update the application status to canceled. Once again, we'll select our trigger. And we want our trigger to be when a record matches a specific condition. So when the review task is canceled in our entrance permit application, now we can select our conditions for the specific field, which will be our reviewer status. Then we'll set the logic to that reviewer status is canceled. Now we can save our changes, and based on this trigger, we can designate our first action, which is going to be to update the record. We'll update the review task comment in the same entity. We'll apply our record ID from the trigger. Then we'll select the field that we want to update. And we'll add a comment. Next, we'll add one more action. Once again, to update the record. We'll select our entrance permit application, select the proper record ID, select our application status field, which is currently set to review in process, and we'll update it to canceled. Now we can save the automation and return to the main screen. Now that we have established some basic workflow automations, let's see them in action by completing our first trigger condition. A new record is created in our entry permit application. Okay, I filled out the application very quickly, and notice for our reviewer assignee, status, and application status, these three fields are currently blank. Okay, now that automation should have run when our new record was created. So we can scroll down here, and we can see that the reviewer assignee is Bob as set, and the overall application status has been set to review in process. So from here, let's act as the user, or essentially act as Bob. We'll quickly review this application information, and then we'll update the status. Okay, and now based on our automation trigger being when the user updates the status to canceled, our overall application status has been updated to canceled by our automation. And it looks like the reviewer comment that we also added to the automation has been added as well. Now that we've got everything set up for this new process, let's go ahead and fill it out completely and submit it. Okay, here I've filled out the form and I'm ready to submit. It says my form was submitted, so let's go check it out on the permit dashboard. Alright, here it is. Looks like I was approved. I can review the details of why that application was approved. And that's looking good. And what I can also do is view the specific record. And from here I can review the details, and I can see that the first automation has kicked in, assigning our reviewer and updating the initial application status. Since it's now gone through the document processor, we also get an automated GovAssist status.